More than 120 years ago, 3 men vanished without a trace from a lighthouse on a tiny remote island, never to be seen again. Was it murder? Abduction by foreign spies? Or perhaps something supernatural, like a sea monster or ghost ship? Join us as we delve deep into one of Scotland's most enduring mysteries, the disappearance of the keepers of the Flannan Isles lighthouse. We'll explore the events leading up to their vanishing, the subsequent investigation, and the various theories that have emerged over the years. We'll also examine the clues that might finally tell us what really happened on that fateful night. The Flannan Isles lighthouse was built in 1899 on Eilean Moor, one of the 7 Flannan Isles in the Outer Hebrides, about 80 miles from the Scottish mainland. Known as the Seven Hunters, these rocky, uninhabited islands are steeped in mystery and lore. On December 7, 1900, exactly 1 year after the lighthouse first shone its light, 3 men arrived on Eilean Moor to start their 2-week shift as lighthouse keepers. Principal keeper James Duckett, 43, second assistant Thomas Marshall, 40, and occasional keeper Donald MacArthur, 28, who was filling in for the sick first assistant William Ross, were ready to take on their duties. They were accompanied by the superintendent of lighthouses, Robert Muirhead, who conducted a routine inspection before leaving the island. The lighthouse was regularly monitored from the mainland using a telescope, allowing the men to signal for help if needed. However, the island was often enveloped in heavy mist, limiting visibility and communication. From the mainland, the lighthouse was last seen on December 12th, and passing ships noted it was operating normally on the night of December 14th. However, on the night of December 15th, the transatlantic steamer Arcta passed by and observed that the lighthouse was dark. The crew reported this anomaly to the Northern Lighthouse Board upon docking 3 days later. Due to bad weather, the board couldn't send a relief crew until December 26th, when the lighthouse vessel Hesperus arrived at Eilean Moor. As the crew approached, they noticed that the lighthouse was not lit, and none of the usual preparations for landing were in place. No flag on the flagstaff, no provision boxes at the landing stage, and no keepers to greet them. Captain Jim Harvey attempted to contact the keepers by sounding the ship's horn and firing a flare, but received no response. Eventually, Joseph Moore, the relief keeper, was sent ashore to investigate. Moore found the gate and the main door of the lighthouse closed. Inside, he discovered unmade beds, a stopped clock, and a cold fireplace that hadn't been lit for days, signs that something was terribly wrong. He quickly returned to the Hesperus to report his findings. Captain Harvey then sent Moore, accompanied by the second mate and a seaman, to search the island more thoroughly. They found no trace of the keepers. The lamps in the lighthouse had been cleaned and refilled, and the kitchen was tidy. Interestingly, one set of oilskins, a waterproof coat typically worn during bad weather, was still hanging on its hook, suggesting that one of the men had ventured out without it. The men's sea boots were missing, hinting that they had likely gone down to the landings. While the east landing appeared normal, the west landing showed signs of severe damage. A supply box had been smashed open. Turf on the cliff was torn away, railings were twisted, and a heavy rock had been dislodged. It seemed a massive storm had struck the island, wreaking havoc on the west landing. Harvey left Moore and 3 volunteer seamen on the island to keep the lighthouse running and continue the search. Meanwhile, the Hesperus returned to Lewis with a telegram from Captain Harvey to the Northern Lighthouse Board, describing the grim discovery. The message read, "A dreadful accident has happened at Flannan's. The 3 keepers, Duckett, Marshall, and the occasional MacArthur, have disappeared from the island. On our arrival there this afternoon, no sign of life was to be seen on the island. Fired a rocket, but, as no response was made, managed to land Moore, who went up to the station but found no keepers there. The clocks were stopped, and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened about a week ago. Poor fellows. They must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane or something like that." On December 29th, Robert Muirhead arrived to lead the investigation. Knowing the men well, he closely examined the scene. Muirhead identified the oilskins left behind as belonging to MacArthur, questioning why he would have left the lighthouse in bad weather without his coat. He also noted that leaving the lighthouse unmanned was against protocol. Something urgent must have drawn all 3 men outside. The equipment in the lighthouse was clean and well-maintained, suggesting the men had completed their duties before they vanished. Muirhead's investigation of the West Landing confirmed Moore's earlier findings. Severe storm damage had occurred, likely causing the men to venture out to secure the equipment. Muirhead theorized that Duckett and Marshall went out during the storm to secure the supply box, while MacArthur stayed behind. When they didn't return, MacArthur might have gone out to search for them, only to be swept away by a massive wave. This plausible hypothesis was detailed in Muirhead's report on January 8, 1901, which stated that the men were last seen working until dinner on December 15th, with the final logbook entry recorded on December 13th, and subsequent notes on a slate up to the 15th. Despite Muirhead's logical explanation, the public was not convinced. The bodies of the three men were never recovered, leading to a proliferation of wild speculations. Island Moor, long considered a place of superstition and mystery, fueled these theories. The island, home to the ruins of a 7th century chapel dedicated to Saint Flannan, was known as the Seven Hayley or Holy Isles in the Middle Ages. Pilgrims often visited, performing rituals and experiencing a sense of fearful reverence. The island's eerie reputation gave rise to theories involving supernatural forces. Some suggested the keepers were taken by a giant seabird or devoured by a sea serpent, while others believed they were spirited away by the Phantom of the Seven Hunters, a legendary ghost ship. Beyond the supernatural, theories of murder, suicide, and even alien abduction were proposed. Years later, a logbook allegedly containing strange entries by Marshall added to the intrigue, but it was eventually debunked as a forgery. Other theories included the idea that the men had staged their own disappearances to escape debts or start new lives, but there was no evidence to support this. Duckett and MacArthur both had families, making it unlikely they would abandon them. Additionally, MacArthur's role as an occasional keeper meant his presence on the island was last minute, complicating any plans for a premeditated escape. Some speculated that MacArthur, known for his temper, might have quarreled with the others, leading to a fatal fight or murder-suicide scenario. However, there was no evidence to support such a violent conclusion. Ultimately, the most plausible explanation remains Muirhead's, that the men were swept away by a freak wave while trying to secure the landing during the storm. Despite this, the lack of definitive proof means the true fate of the Flannan Isles keepers remains a mystery. The events of December 15, 1900 have left an indelible mark on Island Moor, shrouding it in a veil of intrigue and speculation. Whether the keepers met their end through misadventure, supernatural forces, or something else entirely, their story continues to captivate and puzzle. As we close the book on the Flannan Isles mystery, at least for now, we are reminded of the power of nature and the enduring allure of the unknown. Brought to you by Files.